Hey, this is for Joe, the Grave Robber. Hey Joe, I listened to your video, and I think that you've got a pretty good, strong core Space Marine army. You asked me to comment on it. I agree that the tactical squads are the core of your army, and I do the same thing. I have three tactical squads. Recently I've been running them, all three of them in Rhinos. Two squads, like the one that you run with Combi Melta Gun. And then I run one that I've been running one that's Combi Melta Gun Missile Launcher, simply so that I have a little bit more long-range firepower, so I'm able to use that to support what the rest of my army is doing on the table. Unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news for you. One of the tactics that you use, outflanking the Vindicators, doesn't work. Personally, I've actually been looking at Vindicators for my army. I recently picked up a unit of 3 of them because you can use them as a line breaker formation for Apocalypse games. Here's one of them right here that I've been working on. I've just started painting. It's actually going to be in a painting tutorial that I'm going to be working on a little bit later, probably tomorrow. And but unfortunately, Con only gives outflank to units that have the combat tactics rule, and tanks do not have that rule. So if you look closely at your codex, what Con says is he replaces the combat tactic rules on units that have it, and that vehicles that are dedicated transports for those units can outflank. However, what that means is things like Predators, Land Speeders, and Vindicators don't get that rule, so they can't outflank. What I would suggest doing, and actually from looking at your army, is that while Con is a good choice, I think, for Furious Charge, for leading your unit into combat and getting that +1 strength and initiative for the tactical squad that you use in your Land Raider. And by the way, that's a great choice, because it makes that Land Raider a scoring unit while you have a scoring the tactical squad within it. What I would suggest doing is actually looking at possibly changing Con over to Pedro Cantor, and I'll tell you why. First off, you can still use the Vindicators in the same way you have been, but instead of using them as an outflanking unit, I suggest just putting them in reserves and having them come in from your table edge. They can still cause the confusion and the distraction that you want them to. You can still have them cause the threat to the center. However, since they can't outflank, there's no reason really for you to have Con in your army, because you're really using Con to make them outflank and then to give that one tactical squad a bonus. What Pedro Cantor does for your army is twofold. First, all of your Marines, your Terminators, your tactical squad guys, all of them will get the rule Stubborn. What Stubborn does is it means that no matter how many models you lose in combat, anytime you take a leadership test and there's a modifier to it, you ignore that negative. So let's say you were facing a Chaos Demon Prince in close combat. The Demon Prince killed 4 of your guys, and you lost combat by 4. Normally, you'd have to take your leadership test using the Sergeant's 9, -4, which would be 5. Well, with the Stubborn rule, you take your test on the basic 9 leadership, which is really good for, I think, the way you use your army and the way you use the tactical squads to hold objectives, and then everything else is a distractor. What that'll do is that when the tactical squads do come under fire, they're more likely to stick around and actually stay in the battle and not run away. The other thing that Con does, I'm sorry, not Con, what Pedro Cantor does, is he gives any friendly model within 12 inches of him an additional attack. So if you wanted to have that squad in your Redeemer, and by the way, I don't use a Redeemer, I use a Crusader, but I've actually been looking at, and I'm currently in the process of getting ready to purchase a Redeemer so that I can try it out. What he does is he'll give that tactical squad and any other friendly squad within 12 inches of them at the beginning of when they start fighting. So if Pedro is in a combat, and he wins the combat and moves 6 inches, and that puts him within 12 inches of another unit. When they start, and then they start fighting, as long as one model is within 12 inches of Pedro, they all get +1 attack. So that tactical squad will have 2 attacks apiece. Instead of being initiative 5 and strength 5 on the first round of combat, they'll just have 2 attacks, which, sure, the initiative and the strength are a good bonus, but turning your guys into the equivalent of a veteran, like a Sternguard guy or a Vanguard guy, I think is a better bonus than just being able to hit a little bit harder in the first round of combat, because oftentimes, especially with tactical squads, your combats are going to go 2, 3, 4 turns, and sure, you get the bonus the first turn, but after that, unless you use hit and run, which is a nice thing about Con, you're not going to get that strength bonus in the following turns, especially not since most likely you're not going to use hit and run until the enemy's turn. So you're still going to have a second round where you don't have those bonuses, and that's really where, in my opinion, where tactical squads have problems. I also agree with you about your land speeders. I think that running them separately is a danger. Me personally, I'd probably run them together as a team, but I do understand the reasoning why, because late game you can use them to quickly contest objectives and turn a loss or a tie into a win, and I think that's a good use. I've currently been looking at adding land speeders to my army. I'm thinking about doing something a little different with them. I probably will be using the Cyclone missile launchers and using them much like Eldar players do, where they sort of use their grav tanks to skirt the back edges of the table. And with the 48-inch range Cyclone missile launchers, I should be able to add some fire support to my army, keep them away, and then late game use them to contest objectives and turn ties into wins. Alright, well, thank you very much for for asking me to give you my opinion, and that's my opinion. So good luck to you, and may your battles go well.